Hi, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Leland Stanford Junior University, which is commonly referred to as Stanford University or Stanford, which is a private research university on an 8,180-acre campus, which is located near Palo Alto, California. It's situated in the northwestern Santa Clara Valley on the San Francisco Peninsula, about 20 miles northwest of San Jose and 37 miles southeast of San Francisco. Stanford is widely considered one of the most prestigious and selective universities in the world.
We are college roommates. We graduated here in 1980, and we were talking about how the wonderful Stanford campus keeps becoming more and more beautiful and more accommodating and bringing people, and how we were just talking about it. This is a world university because it's bringing in all the greatest and brightest people from everywhere. So it's a wonderful place, Stanford. We love it.
This is the quad where many of the academic offices and classrooms are located. Sort of the center of campus, the architecture, the church, everything that was sort of part of the original part of campus is still intact right here. Outside of this, almost all of the buildings you see around are brand new.
And all the graduating classes have a time capsule. As you walk around, you see all the years in the original classes, starting underneath Memorial Church here and stretching around the quad for each year. And the students, when they graduate, they can put a little memento in there to begin to look at that. And all the original departments were set around the quad when the university was first built, and now buildings have come out everywhere from there. Quite a place.
Enjoy the view.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a cloudy day for us here, but still not too bad.
All right.
I'd like to tell you a little bit about the beginnings of Stanford University. Mr. Leland Stanford was a California railroad tycoon and politician. He founded the university in 1891 in honor of his son, Leland Stanford Jr., who died of typhoid 2 months before his 16th birthday. The university was established as a co-educational and non-denominational institution, but it struggled financially after the senior Stanford's death in 1893, and after much of the campus was damaged by the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. Following World War II, Provost Frederick Terman supported faculty and graduates' entrepreneurialism to build self-sufficient local industry in what would become known as Silicon Valley. By 1970, Stanford was home to a linear accelerator, was one of the original 4 ARPANET nodes, and had transformed itself into a major research university in computer science, mathematics, natural sciences, and social sciences. More than 50 Stanford faculty, staff, and alumni have won the Nobel Prize, and Stanford has the largest number of Turing Award winners for a single institution. Stanford faculty and alumni have founded many prominent technology companies, including Cisco Systems, Google, Hewlett-Packard, LinkedIn, Netscape Communications, Rambus, Silicon Graphics, Sun Microsystems, Varian Associates, and Yahoo. The university is organized into 7 schools, including academic schools of humanities and sciences and earth sciences, as well as professional schools of business, education, engineering, law, and medicine. Stanford has a student body of approximately 6,900 undergraduate and 8,400 graduate students. Stanford is a founding member of the Association of American Universities, and in 2010 managed over $1 billion in research funding and $13 billion in endowment support, with over $21 billion in consolidated net assets. Stanford competes in 34 varsity sports. During the 2000 Summer Olympics in Beijing, for example, Stanford athletes won 25 medals, including 8 gold medals, which is more than any other university in the United States. Locals and members of the university community are known to refer to the school as the Farm, which is an acknowledgement to the fact that the university is located on the former site of Leland Stanford's horse farm. The original inner quad buildings were designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, Francis Walker, Charles Alterton Coolidge, and Leland Stanford himself. After 6 years of planning and building, the university officially opened in October 1891 to over 500 students and 15 faculty members, 7 of them from Cornell. Tuition was free until the 1930s. Herbert Hoover and his future wife, Lou Hoover, were in the first class. The Hoovers maintained close lifetime ties to the school. As far as the campus, the main campus is adjacent to Palo Alto and is bounded by El Camino Real, Stanford Avenue, Junipero Serra Boulevard, and Sand Hill Road. The university also operates several remote locations. Stanford's main campus is actually its own census-designated place within unincorporated Santa Clara County, although some of the university land, including the Stanford Shopping Center and the Stanford Research Park, are within the city limits of Palo Alto. Stanford University is a large, highly residential research university with a majority of enrollments coming from graduate and professional students. The full-time, 4-year undergraduate program is classified as more selective and has an arts and science focus with high graduate student coexistence. Other Stanford-affiliated institutions include the Stanford Linear Accelerator, National Accelerator Laboratory, which was originally called the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center, or SLAC, and the Stanford Research Institute, a now independent institution which originated at the university in addition to the Stanford Humanities Center.
But like I mentioned, any Stanford student at the undergrad or graduate level is free to take classes from any school. And a lot of Stanford is focused on this idea of interdisciplinaryism, this kind of combination of majors and departments from across schools. So I majored in my undergrad in engineering physics, which was housed both in the School of Engineering and the School of Humanities and Sciences, and I got to take classes from both of them. The most popular major on campus is something called human biology, which is a combination of biology, anthropology, psychology, all sorts of things like that. And next most popular is another interdisciplinary major called international relations, which is a combination of political science, economics, and a foreign language. There's a lot of neat opportunities at Stanford for people to kind of combine diverse interests. All right, go rent from. They also rent out video games. They claim this is for research. I'm not really sure I believe that, but I'm glad that they do it. There's a whole lot of neat special collections in Green Library and other archives as well. Stanford, as a preeminent research institution, has access to a lot of very unique materials. Some of Steinbeck's original drafts are housed in Green Library. There are pages of Einstein's original paper, a page of the Gutenberg Bible, all sorts of really neat stuff that students can come look at, read, put on gloves and handle for any research or interest they might have. We're also going to walk past, as soon as we get around this corner, Meyer Library. Meyer Library is another large library on campus, though it's unique in the fact that it's a tech library. There are very little books in Meyer. I think there's only one collection, the East Asian Studies Library. So a very small amount of books, huge amount of computing resources. Meyer has, along with a 24-hour study room, a whole number of computer resources that Stanford students can use, large machines that are set up with pretty much any software package you could want or need as a Stanford student, and rent out equipment to help you with video editing, audio editing, all sorts of things like that. Stanford has a big emphasis on creating people who can communicate their ideas well. There's a big oral communications program housed in Meyer that will help you, hone your presenting skills in the same way that being a tour guide can help you. So any questions about that? Yeah. What's this? So this is the clock tower on Stanford's campus. When you hear bells chiming at the 15-minute mark, they're coming out of the bells on top here. A lot of people think they're coming out of Hoover Tower. That's not the case. They're coming right out of here. Yeah. So the thing you might be looking at the bottom, that whole mechanical system. So these bells are completely mechanical. and that is the crank that you have to come in and turn them to get them going every day. You have to actually come in and crank up the system and then let it go. So now bike accidents have decreased dramatically, and so I think still probably bike accidents are the leading cause of injury among Stanford students. But I'd say this speaks less to the danger of biking here and more to the relative safety of campus. Campus is very insular. We're a mile away from Palo Alto, which is a very safe city to begin with, and so there's virtually zero crime on Stanford's campus, with the exception of a lot of bike theft that happens. Any questions about that? We're walking into White Plaza. White Plaza is the main student area on campus. It functions in a lot of ways like a quad would function at another campus. I think Stanford's quad is very much an academic space on campus, and White Plaza becomes kind of the more student gathering space. So you'll see Old Union across the fountain on your right. Old Union is the headquarters of a lot of student groups on campus. It has space that any student group can rent out for meetings, events, anything like that. And headquarters both the Associated Students of Stanford University, which is the Stanford student government that directs funding to all sorts of different groups on campus, as well as numerous cultural centers for all sorts of diverse groups on Stanford's campus. So any questions about Old Union or anything like that? Other stuff in White Plaza, my favorite has got to be the Claw. This fountain behind you is called the Claw because if you kind of squint and look at it funny, it looks like a claw coming out of the water. Stanford has, I believe, more than 20, less than 30 fountains on campus. I can't remember the exact number, that are scattered all throughout campus. And so you get this great tradition called fountain hopping, where Stanford students will run usually in the middle of the night from one fountain to the next, kind of jump in, splash around, jump out, run to the next fountain, jump in, splash around, jump out, run to the next. It's a really good introduction to the layout of campus and is a lot of fun in the process. On your left, you'll see a post office. Stanford at 8,000 acres is big enough to have our own zip code. And so we actually two zip codes, one for buildings and one for post office, or for the P.O. boxes. So there's a lot of ground to cover, and students will be able to get their mail there, which is pretty good. Across the plaza on your right is Professor Union. If you're looking for a place to get lunch after the tour, I highly recommend Professor Union. There's a whole bunch of good restaurants in there. I like the Coho personally, the coffee house, but there's a whole bunch of good stuff to choose from. So any questions about White Plaza? Okay. We're walking out of White Plaza. The building we're going to walk under is Braun. Braun is the headquarters of the music department on Stanford's campus. Stanford has a whole number of performing groups. These are everything from the Stanford Jazz Ensemble to the Wind Ensemble to the Leland Stanford Junior University Marching Band, which is less of a marching band and more of a run around on the field and occasionally spell words sort of band. They're a lot of fun to watch. I think ESPN called them yesterday defining new standards of irreverence, which I think is a pretty apt description of Stanford's band. They are unconventional to say the least, and I definitely recommend YouTubing them when you get a chance. Are there any questions about music or performing arts on Stanford's campus? Okay. Then when we walk out of Broad, we'll get to the very bottom of Mayfield Avenue. This is called The Row. It's premium upperclassmen housing. So I'll talk a little bit about the different kinds of housing that you can see here. It's really neat Stanford in microcosm. So behind me and to your left is Mwekma. Mwekma is a culturally themed house on campus. This is a house where 50% of the people identify with the culture of the house. Mwekma is Native American themed. So about 50% of the people who live there will identify as being Native American, and the other 50% will not, kind of conforming to Stanford's idea of this interdisciplinary nature of the university and fostering communication across people not only with different academic backgrounds, with different personal backgrounds as well. That's also seen in the house across from it, which is Story. Story is a biology-themed house. Instead of culturally themed, it's academically themed. And about 50% of the people in there will be biology or human biology majors. And again, the other 50% will not, to try to keep this diverse community. These are all kind of large, I guess, fraternity-style houses that have been converted into just normal upperclassmen residences. go behind Story, you can see Sigma Chi, which is a traditional fraternity. About 16% of Stanford students rush a Greek organization, so they are, I guess, a small but vocal component of the Stanford community. There are currently 6 housed fraternities and 3 housed sororities. Across from Story is Column Bay. Column Bay is what's called a cooperative house. This is a house where students cook and clean for themselves in exchange for a very vibrant place to live and a reduced housing bill. And then next to Column Bay is Mars, which is self-ops. Self-ops are kind of the standard against which all other houses are measured. They're the traditional mode of upper-class housing, where you have between 30 and 60 people living in a house together, along with a chef who will come in and cook your meals and a cleaning service that will come in and clean for you. It's very much like a world's best bed and bath, or bed and breakfast, I should say. So that's kind of an overview into Stanford housing. Freshman housing is unfortunately not on the tour route. It's kind of in both directions that way. Freshman housing is, I would say, very traditional Stanford college-style housing where you have long hallways, shared bathrooms, one-room doubles, but very nice. So thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you very much. The bookstore, we walked right past it. It's right by the clock.
The Stanford University Libraries and Academic Information Resources hold a collection of nearly 9 million volumes, 260,000 rare or special books, 1.5 million ebooks, 1.5 million audiovisual materials, 75,000 serials, 6 million microform holdings, and thousands of other digital resources, making it one of the largest and most diverse academic library systems in the world. Highwire Press, which is the university e-publishing platform, produces and hosts some 1,400 journals and receives over 600 billion requests every month. The Stanford University Press also produces over 175 books each year. The vast computing resources include some 150,000 computers on the Stanford University network, which was one of the first networks to connect to the internet that we know now. This also includes clusters of printer-enabled computers in every undergraduate residence, as well as high-performance computer clusters for general use throughout the campus. Thank you very much.